Hey guys, welcome back to Believe in Eagles. I'm your host, Lee Mayock. It's been very quiet since the beginning of free agency. We had a lot to talk about right at the beginning of free agency. So it seems like they got a lot of their business done then, but the draft is approaching. What is it? Next week? 2 weeks?
24th.
Yeah.
A couple weeks.
So after Easter. And let's do a little recap or an update or a little refresher on the Eagles' needs going into the draft now that free agency is pretty much over for them.
Yeah, I thought Howie did a really nice job addressing in free agency, and he didn't have much money, but I thought he did a great job of addressing areas of need. For instance, defensive end / edge. They've lost Josh Sweat. They lost Graham. So what did Howie do? He got 1-year prove-it deals with Josh Uche and Azeez Ojulari.
Okay.
Young edge guys that need, because of injuries and some other reasons, they need a good year. And they're getting paid the 1-year deal. Thought that was really clever by Howie.
Can I ask you something on that? With those kind of 1-year prove-it deals, do you find them to work out usually? Like the guy wants to prove it or has a chip on his shoulder, or what's the case? Do they usually work out?
They're kind of a win-win for both sides because, the team might want to try to lock up a veteran player for 3 or 4 years at a low number, and the agent and the player say, you know what, he's better than that. He was hurt half of last year or whatever. We'll do a 1-year deal at a certain number that we both agree on, and that gives him a chance to leverage this year into a bigger contract next year.
Oh, so that is a win-win. Okay.
It's a fair, and a lot of teams have really, I think, done a nice job with the 1-year deals, and it's become more and more common around the league.
Oh, okay, cool. Was that the dogs? I heard the dogs.
That was Max downstairs, yeah.
Max, he doesn't want to make an appearance. This would be week 3 of an appearance by Max. He's over us.
Well, if that door behind me breaks open, it'll be because the 130-pound fat Max bangs through it.
And anyone wondering, that's a dog, not a person. Okay, all right. So back to the Eagles. So we have the 1-year prove-it deals. What else do we have going on?
So they had the 1-year deals, which I think was really helpful. So the way I look at this draft season now is that the Eagles lost 4 starters on defense to free agency, plus 3 or 4 other players that played a significant number of snaps. On offense, they lost 1 starter, and they lost Kenny Gainwell at running back, who I really liked. But obviously the bigger need is on the defensive side of the ball. Okay. So from a draft perspective, what they have this year is they have 8 draft picks this year, and they probably will have about 12 next year because they'll get all the compensatory picks from this year's free agency class. Okay? So if you look at the big picture like Howie Roseman will, he's got 20 draft picks over the next 2 years, which is probably too many. Okay, not 20 guys aren't going to make that a loaded team like that. So it gives Howie a lot of flexibility both this year and next year if he wants to move around the draft board. Move up to get a player this year. He can use draft capital from next year. Speak of Max.
Max is back.
And Willow's here too. We got them both.
Oh my gosh, we have 2 dogs in the bag.
Yep, Willow's up in the bed.
Guys.
Yep, and there's Maxie deciding whether he's going to jump on the other bed.
He might. I don't know if his joints are going to.
Yeah, he found a bone and he's happy with that. So he just left.
Okay,
so anyway, where were we? Hi, Willow.
Howie's draft capital. So so you're saying he's been stocking up so he can he can do a multitude of things.
Next year's the year he should have a lot of picks, but he can use some of next year's capital if he wants. But he's in a really good position for what he does well, which he's nimble on draft day. He can move up, he can move back, he can stick and pick. He's one of the best I've ever seen. He's patient when he needs to be patient, but when it's time to make a trade, make a move, he makes it. So if you look at what they need this year, for me, need number 1 would be at corner. They lost Slay. They lost his backup, Isaiah Rodgers, who's a better player than a lot of people think.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at this year's corner class in college, and I think there's a really good group at the top, and then there's a drop-off. And you'd like to get one of those guys at the top if you could. So if you're sitting at pick number 32, I think they're going to be out of a group. I think the top 3 guys are gone.
Okay.
Okay, before that.
But you're saying that you said there's like 15 of them.
15 of what?
Like the top group, or did I make that up? Like the top corners.
The top corners, there's not 15 of them. There's
How many are there?
Just let me talk, Lee.
I'm trying to understand. I need to follow.
Okay. So I think the first 3 guys will be gone.
Okay.
I think there's a group of 4 after that may be available, at least 1 or 2 of the 4.
Okay.
And if they are, I think the Eagles will be interested in them. And that group of 4 are Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky, who I think probably will be gone also. And he's really intriguing. He ran 4.28. He had 6 picks the last couple of years, took a couple to the house. My issue with him was a lack of physicality and tackling, but he also had a shoulder injury he was dealing with. So Hairston's a really gifted kid. Trey Amos from Ole Miss, who can play outside and inside. Azariah Thomas from Florida State, who I'm higher on than most people, who I really like. And Siobhan Ravel from East Carolina. Out of those group of 4, I think 1 or 2 will be available in draft night at 32. And so that's one of the groups I think he has to look at.
And are there out of that group, are there a couple or one that sticks out to you that would fit best with specifically the Eagles?
Hairston makes a lot of sense there, but again, I'm not sure.
He might be gone.
He might be gone. He's played press. He's played off. Azariah Thomas, the kid I like, has been a press-only corner. In Vic's system, they play a lot of off. Mm-hmm. So you gotta be comfortable that the kid can play off, and not every corner can.
Okay.
And I think Trey Amos fits because he can play nickel, which is where Cooper Jean plays, but he also can play outside. So there's really nice versatility. If they had Trey Amos, there's nice versatility between he and Cooper because they both do multiple jobs.
Okay.
So I like that kind of grouping there, the depth there in the first round. Then you look at the edge rushers. We talked about a need for edge. Mm-hmm. And if Mykel Williams from Georgia was there, I think he'd be really interesting. I don't think he'll be there. He might be a guy, though, if he was there at 25 or 26, Howie might be interested to move up and try and grab him because there's some real value. The kid was hurt this year. He played through injury. He didn't play as well as people expected, but he played the whole year with an injury. So the other names at edge rusher potentially at 32 would be James Pierce from Tennessee, Mike Green from Marshall, who I think will be gone, Dominic Ezeraku from Boston College, who I think may be there.
Oh, so, do we really like him, or is this a plug for your BC Eagles alum?
No, both, because he deserves it.
Two things can be true at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really good. Mm-hmm. He had 17 sacks last year in college football, and he plays larger than he is because he's got great length.
Is he? How tall is he?
He's 6'2.5" plus or minus, but I mean, it's more about he's got 34.5-inch long arms, and his length makes him play bigger than he actually is.
Okay.
He's got great twitch. He can bend. But my point is, because they lost 2 bigger edge guys, if they could get a Mykel Williams, Shamar Stewart is a kid from Texas A&M that's really, really talented, but people are worried about his lack of production in college football. He only had 4.5 sacks in his entire career. So there's a big argument going on in draft circles about his height, weight, speed are off the charts. The kid's so gifted physically, yet if he was so gifted, why were his statistical numbers so low?
And where do you land on that in that argument?
I land on the fact that I don't think he's a real instinctive pass rusher, but I do think he could learn given a really good coach and in the right room of defensive linemen. So, but I do think he's a project. I think he's really gifted, and I think 2 years from now he could be a high-level player given his gifts if he gets in the right situation, the right fit in an NFL locker room. which would include the Eagles. I think
Absolutely. Yeah.
the Eagles are very confident in their ability to develop players. Not every franchise is the same, but the Eagles are really good at it. So that's why I say there are a lot of teams that are going to say, no, I wouldn't touch him in the first round. So he might slide a bit despite all his ability. And if he does, I think he and Michael Williams are really intriguing guys.
Interesting. Wait, question on him. Has he played at the same college his whole career?
If I remember correctly, yes, but I would have to look at my notes.
Okay, I was just wondering if I was going to ask if there's any difference with his like productivity.
No, he's a 3-year player from Texas A&M with 4.5 total sacks.
Wait, that is so interesting to me that he was still that high with those stats.
Yeah, but he's
just like a physical freak. Like
he blows up the combine. People go crazy.
Yeah.
Senior Bowl was pretty good.
Has there been anyone like him that you remember in drafts prior to that did well or did poorly in the NFL?
Well, there are a lot of examples going back over on both sides of the guys that, the Eagles drafted a guy from Boston College named Mike Mamula back in the 80s or 90s. And he was the first guy that actually trained for the combine.
What do you mean?
He was like back in the day, people just went, we go to the combine, we work out and we do a position drill, we go home.
Oh, wow. It was that like relaxed.
Yeah. Now you know what it's like with everybody training for every drill in the combine. Yeah. And it was never televised before. Players didn't know much about it. It wasn't that. But Mike Mamula was a really good defensive end at BC. And he said, to hell with that. I'm going to train for every part of it. And he blew it up. And he went from probably a 3rd-round pick to a top, I think he was picked like 10, 11, 12.
In the first round? Because of the combine?
Because he blew it up. And he had pretty good tape.
Okay.
That's an example.
But was he good?
He had a career of what maybe a 2nd or 3rd round pick would have.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So he kind of played to his taste. He's a really good player, really good player. But bottom line is he got pushed up because he did so well in the combine. And there are a lot of those kind of examples. And at the end of the day, what this kid did, I think, that helped him is he went to the Senior Bowl. So he's got his pads on. He's wearing a helmet and shoulder pads going against the best in the country. And he brought his best game with him. And again, I don't think he's natural or instinctive, but I do think he's tough enough. I don't know anything about his mental because I have never met the kid, but the Senior Bowl helped him. And then the combine combined with the Senior Bowl, right? So postseason, if you want to like the guy, there are 2 reasons. Look, in pads, we saw him at the Senior Bowl, and he played well. And then he went to the combine and blew it up. So if we bring him into our locker room, we can make him the best.
Okay.
So he's a little bit of a lightning rod in the NFL.
Okay, that's interesting. So he's a project, but Eagles are good with guys like that. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. So
who else is on your list?
The other 2 positions are safety and defensive tackle. The defensive tackle class is outstanding. So you don't really have to have a defensive tackle in the first round because you can pick up a really good one in the 2nd or 3rd. Keep in mind, Milton Williams, who everybody's so upset about losing, was a really good player, but the Eagles got him in the 3rd round. Okay, so there are those guys out there. If Walter Nolan or Derek Harmon were available at 32, their defensive tackles, the Eagles would have to be really interested in them. They'll probably both be gone, but they're really good players. And then at safety, one of my favorites is Malachi Starks in the draft from another Georgia player. What a surprise. He's a dog. He is a dog. And
the Philadelphia Dogs.
he can play nickel. He can play safety. And again, with Cooper DeJean, they both have so much versatility. It would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be there at 32, but like I told you about Michael Williams, like if Starks gets into that 25, 26, 27 range, maybe Howie moves up. So that's a group of names that I would give you on the defensive side of the ball that I think the Eagles would be interested in a clump.
Uh-huh.
okay, of guys. And then on the offensive side, which again, I think it should be more of a defensive draft early for the Eagles, but
Right.
offensively, offensive lineman, if Gray Zabel from North Dakota State was available at 32, and I don't think he will be, he can play guard or tackle. He can play all 5 positions.
He can
Really
play
like,
all 5 positions.
yeah, he could.
Is that
Yeah.
is that like a unique thing?
Well, there's a kid from Duke that came out last year, went in the first round of Tampa Bay named Barton, and he was
Uh-huh.
a similar guy. But it is rare.
That's crazy. That sounds crazy to me because those positions are difficult and like nuanced.
Yeah, but I said he could play all 5. I didn't say
Right.
he did play all
I
5.
know. I'm just saying, like that's a
Yeah,
unique thing. That's a special
yeah,
player.
it is. So Gray Zabel's really interesting. And then there's the skill guys,
Mm-hmm.
tight ends, running backs, wideouts. And out of that group, there's 2 wideouts that are intriguing. Emeka Ibuka from
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State
Yeah.
and Luther Burden from Missouri. One of those 2 could be available.
Okay.
And I think a really intriguing guy is Mason Taylor from LSU,
Mm-hmm.
who's a tight end. And
Mm-hmm.
keep in mind, Dallas Goedert's getting a little bit older. He's got a bigger salary. I think this kid's undervalued. He'll go in the second round. But if somebody took him in from 25 to 32 in the first round, it wouldn't surprise me at all. He's really good.
Okay.
So that's kind of a clump of players that I think the Eagles could be interested in the first round.
Okay, there you have it, guys. There's the clump of players that my dad thinks that the Eagles could be interested in.
Well, that's how GMs. No, that's how GMs look at it.
That's a football word?
Not really, but that's how they look at it. Cluster, clump.
I think cluster sounds nicer.
Like when you talk to like a Howie Roseman,
Yeah.
or another team, like when you're a good team, you draft late, right?
Yeah.
And Baltimore has been one of the best teams in the league forever. And Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCosta have been the GMs in that time frame, the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you watch them, and it's like Howie, just like they're nimble. And Baltimore will sit there at 27. Every year they're drafting in the late 20s. And they'll sit there and they'll stick and pick, or they'll move up or they'll move back. And they never panic. And that's the key. And
Well, that's because they have the experience, and some would say the job security, I feel.
I think more than anything, Lee, is that they're prepared and they're confident.
Mm-hmm. But doesn't that also come with experience?
Yeah, well, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And they've drafted well over the years. And like if they get stuck, which rarely, when I say get stuck, like that cluster we just talked about, like
the clump.
Howie will narrow his list down to 5 or 6 players plus or minus that if they're available at 32 and the Eagles stick and pick at 32, any one of those 5 or 6 would be acceptable to them. Now they'll know from 1 to 5 or 6 who they want in order, but any of those, that grouping would be acceptable to them, right?
Okay.
It's rare that you get shut out. The good GMs are very smart. And they know which guys are going to go where, and they have this group. And it's very rare that you either can't move up, move back, or get stuck with nothing left at that point.
Okay. So we have to talk about what everyone's talking about, like over this past week, because I haven't seen it yet. Colorado Pro Day. Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. Those were the key things. That's what everyone's talking about. Did you see anything from either one of them that would change their draft stock or change what a GM or head coach might be thinking in terms of the drafting?
No. I mean that's what 99% of pro days are. Is a pro day is a cross check, just like the combine. A combine is a cross check. The Senior Bowl or East-West game is a cross check. All the medical information is a cross check. All the off the field information is a cross check. And really what the bottom line is a guy's game tape.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you've got a grade and an opinion based on tape, based on film, based on your scouts watching them, your coaches helping, and you've got this grade. And then you got all these other cross checks just to kind of try to poke chinks in the armor, or more appropriately, confirm what you saw on tape.
Okay.
Right. So the pro days to me are it's about seeing the player live. How does he react to some pressure? You like to meet with the player the night before or the night after, or get some time with the player if you're really interested. But from Shedeur's perspective, he kind of did what I thought he would do. Best thing he does is throw a deep ball. He can drop it in the bucket at distance. He's got a good arm. He looks like he communicates well with his guys. I thought Travis Hunt.
Just quickly about Shedeur, because I have a specific question. Everyone was freaking the hell out about, I think this is what you call it, how he burps the baby. Is that the right term? How he pats the ball too much before he throws it. Why are people freaking out about that? Are they looking for something to freak out about? And why is that a concern?
It's not really a concern for most quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And a lot of quarterbacks, it's just kind of a nervous. They've done it since they were pee-wee. Okay. They were pee-wee players, and they've mm-hmm. done it through high school, through college. It doesn't change their read, mm-hmm. and more importantly, it doesn't change the time frame in which they get the ball out.
Okay.
What some players are saying, or some people are saying, was that the more you do this, the longer you hold on to the ball.
Right.
Okay. And if that's a part of it, then it's a problem. If you're holding on to the ball too long, it's a problem. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did Shedeur hold on to the ball too long at Colorado on game film? Yes. But it had nothing to do with this. It was more about his offensive line being so bad that he was trying to buy extra time.
Okay.
Okay. So from my perspective, what Shedeur is you can't question his toughness. He got the crap beat out of him the last couple of years and kept playing.
Yep.
He's got really good accuracy at all three levels. He changed two programs, Jackson State and Colorado, along with his dad and all the other guys. But I don't think he'll melt under the bright lights no matter where he goes. I think he'll embrace pressure. Mm-hmm. And none of that changed at the pro day.
Okay, so he can pat the ball as long as he gets it out.
Yeah, much more about, like I was a defensive back. You're always looking for tells from the quarterback.
A couple of defensive guys, I think one on the Jags said something about like that was a tell, like he would jump that or whatever.
Yeah, and that's fine. If you see a quarterback on tape that has a tell like that, great. But the more obvious tells are the eyes and the shoulders. And that's why you hear about quarterbacks looking off safeties or looking off a linebacker. You're trying to move a defensive player with your eyes.
You're pump faking them with your eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. With a purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the more quarterbacks are in the league, the longer they're in the league, the more they understand that nuance. And it's the same thing with the shoulders. Like when I was a safety, if a quarterback's shoulders were like this, he wasn't throwing a deep ball.
Okay.
The deep ball was he had to lean back and look for arc and height. So once the shoulders went like that, you were like, uh-oh, because it's going somewhere. So you could get a little jump on the shoulders. Shoulder opens up to throw it back to the other side. A shoulder closes to throw to this. So
is that the same? What about with a wideout? Aren't you always looking at their hips or no? Is that just basketball?
That's if you're in man coverage, if you're in press man, it's a little different because you're up there and you're trying to jab and grab and get a piece, and you might be trailing his inside hip depending on what the coverage is. Mm-hmm. So the really good defensive back coaches have different ways to coach that, where your eyes are. Eye discipline for a defensive back is critical in zone coverage, where if that quarterback's moving you, or if you see you're the outside guy running deep and you turn with them, but you don't see the second guy breaking into your zoned area.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
And how's Travis Hunter at that?
I'm amazed at Travis Hunter. I mean,
I am too. I'm so excited to see what happens with him.
He's a unicorn. You can go back to Charles Woodson at Michigan before he went in the NFL, and he played both ways, but only had a package on offense. Mm-hmm. This kid played every friggin' snap. I mean, he was playing 125 to 150 snaps a game, and to give you a perspective on that, like if you're an NFL defensive player and you play every snap of the game, you might play 65 to 70 snaps maximum, right? He's playing 125 to 150 in college football. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. ever. And his conditioning off the charts. And what I find really exciting is that when if a team is going to make him a corner, for instance, if he's spending 90% of his time at corner and 10% at wideout at an NFL team, I think his corner skills are going to go through the roof. He's got rare skills. I like him at corner because it's harder to find corners than it is wideouts.
Yep.
And I think he's got a rare skill set to be a high level corner. And I would love to develop that. But I also don't want to forget how special he can be on offense either.
Right.
So I think it's going to behoove the coaching staff of wherever he goes to find a great way to use him on both sides of the ball.
Do you have any idea of where he might land?
Well, I think if we assume that Cam Ward goes 1 to Tennessee, the next 2 picks, if Abdul Carter's foot checks out with everybody, next 2 picks are going to be Hunter and Carter in whichever way Cleveland dictates because they have the second pick.
Okay.
So I think, to your point, I think Hunter will either be 2 or 3.
Okay. Cool. And then what about Shedeur?
The Shedeur question is more complicated for me, and from kind of talking to some people around the league, from my own evaluations, I kind of feel like the logic, like if he doesn't go 2 or 3, Cleveland needs a quarterback, the Giants need a quarterback. If he doesn't go 2 or 3, the next logical point is 9. That's New Orleans.
Okay.
They have a new quarterback coach who's Kellen Moore.
From the Eagles.
Came from the Eagles, right.
Yeah.
So often a logical time to draft a quarterback is with a new head coach so they can develop together. So that would be an intriguing landing spot for him. However, I look at it like the GM of that team is Mickey Loomis, who's been there forever.
Yep.
Mickey's the one that brought in Derek Carr. He's the one that drafted their quarterback, Spencer Rattler, in the 5th round last year, who I think is pretty talented.
Okay.
And they want to win now. So there's some pressure on, and Mickey's really good. He's a high-level GM. There's some pressure in New Orleans to win some games. They play in a division that's not very good, right? They can win that division with good quarterback play. So Derek is going to start at quarterback. Do they draft Shedeur at 9 is an intriguing question. My gut tells me no, that they want to get a defensive player to help them become better this year.
Okay.
And I would love to see him at 9 because he could play behind Derek for a year, and Kellen Moore is very much an offensive-minded former quarterback himself. But if he doesn't go 9, I don't know what's going to happen after that. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers are at 21. If teams want to get to Shedeur, they probably have to get ahead of Pittsburgh. I don't think the Rams will take a quarterback at 26 because Stafford's going to play another year or 2, and they don't have a second round pick. So if you take a quarterback at 26 who's not going to play this year, and you don't have a second round pick, you've got nothing really helping you early on this year in the draft class. So depending on what happens there with Shedeur, Jackson Dart is a guy that I think is right behind him. And there could be some teams like Cleveland and the Giants that don't get a quarterback in the 1st round that might be interested to come up late in the 2nd round. Hint, hint, Eagles fans, right? That's where and trade back into the 1st round to get one of those guys. But, this is my point on Shedeur and any quarterback really. But because I know Dion and I like Dion and I root for him and I root for his son, my hope for Shedeur is not that I care less about the number. Does he go 2 or 3? Yeah. I care more about the fit of the team that drafts him.
Right.
Is it going to work best for him? I mean, to give you an example, whatever year Lamar Jackson got drafted, Baltimore came back up and got him at 32. So I want you to think about this. Lamar Jackson, who's perennial every year is in the MVP conversation, right? Was sitting there after the 31st pick and hadn't gone.
Right.
Baltimore had already taken a tight end at like 26 or whatever. He's sitting there at 32. The Ravens trade back up into the 1st round, the last pick, and get Lamar Jackson. And if you ask Lamar today, I bet he would tell you that's the best thing that ever happened to him.
For sure, because of the fit and the environment that he was in. Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, do you want to go to a team that's a dumpster fire and hasn't won games and they're changing GMs and head coaches every year? No. Or do you want to go somewhere where you got a chance to win a Super Bowl every year and you're a big part of it? And that's what I would hope. That's what I would hope for Shedeur.
And I would assume that like that's Deion's mindset too, because he gets it. He's been there. He knows it. Like Shedeur isn't wanting or needing for money. Like where you're picked at this point for him is just a number. So
well, at that age, there's some ego involved in it.
Yeah, but like you have to think like they have to get it. Deion,
they get it. No, they do get it. They do get it. So the right fit at quarterback is critical.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, cool, Dad. Thanks for filling us in on your clumps. I'm sure Eagles fans will like that. Maybe we'll do a little Mayock mock next week, huh?
Maybe we won't.
We'll see how you're feeling. We'll see what your mood is. Okay. All right. Well, have a good week. Thanks so much.
Yeah, why don't you do 5 hours putting together a mock draft?
You're gonna do it anyway for somebody else. You might as well bring it to your
I think
favorite.
You should do one. I think you should do it like you do your NCAA tournament brackets.
With just my instinct and like feelings.
Yeah, like, oh, he played for Colorado, and their colors are blank and blank, and the same colors in the NFL are the New Orleans Saints. So I hope he goes there.
Well, I mean, I win March Madness a lot more than I'm winning these bets that I put homework into. Like, there's no if you went on my Google right now, my Google search, all you would see would be like Alperen Sengun stats, like it's all its stats from NBA players. And I do all this homework and then I lose because Austin Reeves can't score 12 points. So.
Okay, we're gone full cycle on this podcast.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for being here. We'll work on those mocks. Okay. Love you. Thanks, Dad.
Bye-bye.